It's Friday, January 21st. My name is Reagan, and at the current moment, Russia appears to be inciting aggression and potential for invasion into Ukraine. Our Senate is currently held up with Build Back Better, which is merely greenwashing and a public facade. So we're at a crossroads, and what seems to be a unanimous agreement with me and my colleagues is that we're scheduled for an El Nino. This would push our planetary boundaries way outside comfortable zone for most inhabitants of Earth. We are at a crossroads for humanity. Furthermore, we can look forward to, as a subsequent result of this, and the loss of the remaining Arctic sea ice, mass displacement of people and mass casualty events. I'm filming this in 2022, and in just a few short years, we're going to see millions of people die from floods, fires, and hurricanes and cyclones like you've never seen before, that we've never seen before. So, in some sort of prerequisite for the new phase transition that we're entering in, I want to read a TED Talk from Arthur Keller. He actually studied rocket science, and went on to study fluid dynamics, and then turned into an author and screenwriter and just content maker, apparently. Regardless, the speech is in French, so in order to save you the reading of closed caption subtitles, unless you're into that sort of thing and you want to hear my delightful voice, then please stay tuned. This is in 60 frames per second, 1080p, so it should be crystal what I'm going to begin to read here. This is a transcript from a TED Talk in Toulouse, France, which experienced widespread damage from flooding just 3 years later in this current year and this current month of January 2022. So just to make sure that we're all on the same page here, and for good measure, for history, sit back, grab a cold one, close your eyes, and just read this with me so that we're all on the same page. It begins, quote, "Please join me for a collective awakening. It's a vital awakening. As you're about to see, for the past 10 years, I've been doing multidisciplinary foresight work on the vulnerabilities of modern societies. In a nutshell, I analyze the systemic issues faced by mankind, and I develop proposals to deal with these issues by phasing out false ideas, those that cannot work. Nearly all of these so-called solutions we hear about, let me share my analysis. You'll see why I have trouble finding sleep at night. I will start by describing the main challenges faced by mankind. Then I will explain why the strategies available to address climate change, as well as challenges regarding energy, resources, or food security, are intrinsically unfit because they miss the main problem. Then I'll make some suggestions to hopefully inspire positive and meaningful change, both in terms of thinking and action. We live in artificial settings that we've built for ourselves. These are urban landscapes mostly, which hide nature from us. They may be also called socio-cultural and ideological settings that numb our link to nature. Backstage is a burning hell for all forms of life which struggle to survive us. I would like to illustrate how our civilization is a mega machine that annihilates the living world. We have the choice to either stop it or end up destroying ourselves and a myriad of species altogether. The self-destruction process could be imminent, considering the vulnerabilities of our societies. Our communities are polarized between those who understand that our world has reached its physical limits and that we need to redefine our behaviors, and those that reject the very idea of limits without having studied the issue. Either they do not deny the world's limits, or they admit their existence but believe there are no limits to man's ability to solve problems. Such unconditional faith is a form of denial, believing that solutions can be found, thus maintaining the system instead of changing it, means to try to sustain the unsustainable. The question of our society's limits and vulnerabilities is not ideological, is not a matter of personal opinion or intuition either. The truth is, systems scientists, experts in infrastructure resilience, specialists in biochemical cycles, and ecologists tell us that the world is a complex system governed by feedback loops, threshold effects, domino effects, rebound effects, and that due to its exponential dynamics, we have a timing issue. Strategies from 20 years ago are no longer relevant. In fact, we are already too late for any kind of sustainable development. And no strategy will lend to viable and inviable prospects until we consider the problem for what it is, a defect in our model of civilization. Now let us visualize through a systemic analysis of the situation. The natural world consists of 6 spheres. The first one is the lithosphere, the rigid shell of the Earth from which we get hydrocarbons that are vital to our industrial civilization, as well as metal, including rare earths, building sand, or vital nutrients as phosphorus. All of these are reaching limits. Sometimes it's a matter of stock, more often it's a matter of flow. Are we able to secure the supply, especially of oil, our societies depend upon to function? The second sphere is the hydrosphere, all the water of the planet, oceans, seas, lakes, rivers, and groundwater. It is in an advanced state of degradation. Pollution, plastics, and other wastes, acidification, warming, sea level rise, sanitation, drought, dead zones, all the warning lights are flashing red. Third sphere is the cryosphere, the frozen water part of the earth, sea ice sheets, glaciers, permafrost. Breaking news, it's melting. Faster and faster. The fourth sphere is the atmosphere, its chemical composition changing so fast that the water and carbon cycles which sustain life on Earth are totally out of whack. Weather patterns have become erratic, not to mention the multiple forms of gas and particle pollution. Fifth sphere is the biosphere, all life on Earth. A dreadful tragedy is unfolding in the backstage of our pretty settings. If you exclude mankind and farm animals, 60% of all vertebrates have vanished in 44 years. Vertebrates, i.e. terrestrial and marine mammals, amphibians, fish, reptiles, and birds. Can't we hear nature's agonizing scream? Let us be clear. Living beings do not vanish into thin air. We are exterminating them with our way of life. I am not pointing fingers. I am merely stating a fact. The sixth and last sphere is the pedosphere, the soil. 75% of the planet's land are in critical condition due to intensive farming practices, urbanization, or industrial activities, especially mining. And lately, the United Nations warned us of a global food shortage threat. This is the state of the natural world as we observe it. You see why I sleep poorly. Now there's the seventh sphere, the anthroposphere, mankind, human activities and human output, buildings, objects, products, waste. The anthroposphere is mushrooming, an exponential boom that results in the human ecological footprint, the pressure we put on the planet exceeding what the planet can withstand. The question is, can our societies last when everywhere we look nature is collapsing or reach its limits? No, they cannot. We face a great energy and material descent that will be made worse by logistic breakdowns and shortages. We must get ready, learn to live in balance with nature. We belong to it. If we believe we're invulnerable and thus remain unprepared, collapse will soon occur around the world. Chaotic pressures at the end of which we'll be forced to ensure our needs by ourselves. To get our full picture of our vulnerabilities, let me add 4 ingredients. 1. All of our activities require the continuous operation of just-in-time supply chains that we do not control ourselves, and that depend on transportation systems, 96% of which run on oil. If you think that food, energy, health, or health security are provided by the state or local authorities, think again. In the event of a lasting supply break, we're on our own. 2. We rely on infrastructure, transport, water, gas, electricity, and telecom networks that need a constant supply of materials and energy for proper operation and maintenance. 3. We've technologized the world, and in doing so, we've optimized it, but we've also made it more complex and fragile. From now on, we are vulnerable to supply chain breaks, power failures, hacks, cyber terrorists, and so forth. And 4, the icing on the quake, we are at the mercy of unstable stock markets. Our whole world is submitted to a short-termistic financial system, which is the polar opposite of the common good. So what do we do now? Do we demand action from the decision makers? It's a lost cause. Even if they actually wanted to act, their solutions are inadequate. To illustrate this, let's ponder on climate change, the one issue that mobilizes the international community. Each year there's a UN summit, billions are invested, there's a carbon market, we're coming up with new innovations, clean tech, green tech, smart tech, there's energy transitions all over the world, and there's not the slightest reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. None. Why? First of all, because we strive for economic growth, thereby increasing our footprint. On a global scale, there is no decoupling GDP and greenhouse gas emissions, but above all, this is the crux of my point. Even if we did manage to avoid cataclysmic climate disruption by decarbonizing civilization, we wouldn't prevent a widespread collapse. Because our solutions are inadequate, because we treat climate change as a problem, even though it is not one. It's a symptom. Let's model the situation. Upstream, we extract resources. Next, we transform those goods into services. Downstream, we dump pollution and waste. These are solid, liquid, or gaseous, and among those gases, we find the greenhouse gases. Climate change is just one of many side effects of the fact that this civilization is irreversible, uncircularizable flow that converts nature into waste. Thus, using energy, even carbon-free, to power civilization means that we maintain the flow that mutilates the living conditions on Earth. To work, the energy transition must consist of reducing that flow, and above all, it must be one element among a vast array of strategies designed to deal with the root cause. Transform civilization itself. I am aware that it's hard to conceive our visions of the future are obsolete. It doesn't help me sleep. But either we open a conversation to decide together what should be guarded, what should change, what should be stopped, and what could be created, and may we still be able to build a sustainable and decent future. Or we fail to prepare, and these choices will be forced upon us under the pretense of security in highly repressive circumstances. The moment of choice is now, like it or not tomorrow, now. We wake up or we break down. So I ask again, what do we do now? Well, we keep hope, but not just any hope. Not the naive hope that they're going to solve the problem. Not the hope that to perpetuate this toxic, decaying civilization, but the hope to invent new ways of living in the world. We need to deconstruct false hopes as to design lucid ones, but the system is locked, which precludes top-down solutions. We need to act from the bottom up. It's up to us. C'est la vie. It is our responsibility. We are all responsible for the future, even if guilty for the past. Even if not guilty for the past. Our choices are going to define us. Shall we be the ones to stand up for this cause that impacts all the other causes, or we shall be the ones to wash their hands of it? Let us not give in to resignation, despair, defeatism. Tomorrow will be what we make of it. And the good news is, I'm getting there at last, that there will be numerous constructive ways to take action. Two major endeavors must be undertaken: a revolution in our thinking and awakening of our actions. Endeavor number 1. To decolonize and renew our imagination. This is sphere number 8, the sphere of ideas. First off, let's marshal our creativity to craft inspiring counter-narratives able to supersede the mighty sky and high limit narrative, which is a ludicrous scam that can only generate oppression and doom us to unhealthy cognitive dissonance. So we all need to grasp that there's no incompatibility, no rivalry between social and ecological structures that can both and must strengthen each other. It is time we founded new cultures based on hierarchy, a new hierarchy of values. I know this may sound abstract, but in fact, nearly everything we already do have exists. Agroecology, agroforestry, permaculture, no-till farming, gardening on living soil, local supply chains, housing co-ops, reappropriation of the commons by citizen, air, land, or seeds, current local currencies, local exchange, trading systems, low-tech, etc. There's so much we can do to live a better and more sustainably. Inquire about it. Get some training. Transform yourself. These learning experiences require some effort, but they're deeply liberating. And from now on, whatever we undertake, let's ask ourselves, does it help reinvigorate nature and human bonds? This question must become a reflex. Ask yourself the question. Besides renewing our imagination, the second major endeavor is about what we do. It's sphere number 9, the sphere of action. There are 2 complementary kinds of actions: resilience, resistance, and resilience. First off, let's tear down our deceptive settings and organize resistance against the mega machine. Small steps and daily good deeds are all very well, but we are way beyond that. Stopping the destruction and staggering violence of our civilization is an act of self-defense as much as an ethical question. Mobilization on all fronts, civil disobedience. The future needs in every one of us to take emblematic action. Whether activism is your thing or not, it's time to wake up and fight. This is a war. All this must be in sharp contrast with your everyday experience, yet I am not dogmatic or excessive. In fact, this is a moderate point of view among natural scientists. It's our world's backstage that's extreme. At this point, the proportional response to the issues at stake is to mobilize with determination. Together, let's halt harmful activities and insane projects. Let's stop the perverted or greedy elites, big business, banks, laws, firms, lobbies, and serve private interests at the expense of the public good. We must say no more to these things. If we don't, who will? It's up to us to reverse the balance of power, to become architects of the machine and no longer cogs in it. From now on, the role of state and decision makers should be to facilitate resilience initiatives. From now on, the role of states and decision makers should be to facilitate resilient initiatives. What would be a good leader today? It'd be a visionary able to gather citizens around an inspiring, coherent public interest project for the future. These elements set up the dynamic for resistance. Then there's resilience, showing that we can live differently yet will without relying on supply chains on the other side of the planet, on capital-intensive industrial systems, or on highly sophisticated technical devices, living and working with nature without trying to dominate it, with respect, sparking sustainable cohesion, becoming collectively less fragile in the face of limits. Let us establish new societies in parallel with this insane system, communities designed to take over tomorrow, free the race from evermore, able to limit themselves with unity and dignity. Let's build inspiring alternatives. Here's quick advice. If you think you can become self-sufficient on your own or build some isolated self-sufficient community with stockpiles and a martial culture maybe, it won't hold up in the long run even if you're wealthy. Instead, take inspiration from the transition towns movement. It's not enough, but it's a good starting point. Besides, do not underestimate the risk of insecurity. You need to catalyze constructive dynamics of cooperation and networks. Resilience is collective by definition. Instead of scattered islets, you need archipelagos connected to each other in solidarity to make regions resilient, i.e., able to cope with energy and material descent without guaranteeing decent living conditions for everyone. Whomever you are, contribute in your own way. Do you have free time or money? Give it to or fund ecological restoration projects. Do you own land? Lend it for initiatives that prepare for a post-oil era. Are you an elected official? Open your territory to social, ecological transition projects. People will get organized. You don't have to do anything. Just make it easier for them. Are you an executive? Shift your company by designing a truly sustainable business model. Employees and employers should design together meaningful long-term projects. Are you a teacher? Prepare students for resilience rather than job markets that you'll have completely changed within a few years. And so forth. There's so much one can do. It is time to unleash a swell of resilience initiatives, and it's up to us. A new civilization project must arise, and it starts from us. Do not let it intimidate you. Be bold, because beautiful moments are coming if we overcome denial, hypocrisy, and our delusive settings. If we work together with dignity and resolve, we can still make the forces of life prevail against the forces of death. Before I wrap up, a word of caution about technology. Given that we're among tech enthusiasts here, technology fascinates us, yes, but it's a tool which benefits us if it empowers us and does not turn us into junkies. If it contributes to decomplexify the world instead of adding complexity and making us dependent and vulnerable. Complexity leads to perplexity. Perspicacity suggests simplicity. On an oversaturated planet, technology only makes sense in the service of a higher cause, the inception of new ways of life that are protective and no longer exploitive of nature. Renewal of our imagination, resistance, resilience, it's all there. It is the key. After this talk, if you don't know how to get started, here's my advice. It applies to anyone. As soon as possible, foster conversations around you in your community or neighborhood with your friends or coworkers, face-to-face gatherings to discuss limits and vulnerabilities, resources, and your precarious local cultural diversity. You will realize that other people also worry and care, and together you will find answers to the question you must ask from now on. What can we do to revitalize our community and nature and tend towards local self-sufficiency? To do all this, and you shall spark lucid hopes. Incidentally, I might sleep better, and so will everyone else, I guess. Thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you guys later.